Guys, I just spent more than $9,000 on Stranger Things card.
All this time, we've been building it.
This video, I'm going to talk about why I did it, the big why. I'm going to talk about exactly what I've got, going to disclose what I have currently. I'm going to talk about why I think it might be a terrible idea for you to buy Stranger Things cards. And then at the very end, stay tuned towards the end because I'm going to talk about who I actually think is the big bad in this series that has not been revealed, and you probably haven't seen this anywhere else. It's going to be a different type of villain. Stick around. Before I get started, thank you to channel partner ComC.com, your home for buying, selling, and flipping all the hottest trading cards. Their consignment marketplace is home to over 29 million cards across all sports genres and eras. With a ComC.com account, you can purchase cards from different sellers over time and ship them home together later or immediately reprice them for sale on the ComC marketplace. I have also found Stranger Things cards on ComC.com. Definitely check it out. Hello to all my sports card collectors, non-sports collectors, investors, all of my collectibles friends. It is good to see you. It is another day. It is another card video. Today, a double header. It's a fun one. This is going to be a great video. I'm excited to share this with you. If you're new here, you're looking for card collectibles type content on the daily, then you have come to the right place, my friends. Hit that subscribe button down below, the like button if you do like what you hear, and also connect with me on IG at Sports Card Dad, and I'm also firing off tweets on the Twitter, the Sports Card Dad. First, I have to apologize. I'm sorry that I haven't shared this previously. Guys, we have been building it. We've been building it. You're probably wondering, how did this all start? How did this all become? And I really had to dig deep. I wanted to really kind of tell the full story. So this might be a little bit longer than a video that I normally do. It's usually 8 to 10 minutes. This one might drag on a little bit longer, but hang with me, hang on with me. And so this started really for me. If I think about my overall card collectibles journey, it really started, I would say, in 2015. 2015 was the year when I started to notice a lot of remakes of shows and movies from my childhood, whether it be He-Man or whether it be, Ghostbusters or whatever. It was starting to happen where they were starting to bring back a lot of 80s stuff, 90s stuff as well, but really heavy on the 80s. I remember The Goldbergs was a TV show that had come out around that time. It was really, really funny, but kind of hit on those nostalgic things from my childhood that I remembered. Well, there was a show that came out in the summer of 2016, Stranger Things. And I remember not even thinking really much of it. I did see the trailer and I was like, this sounds kind of interesting. I have a background too where I really enjoy kind of the scary movies of the 80s. I like the history of it. I'm not into the gore part, but I like the mystery, the suspense, the origin stories behind the Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th and Halloween and that stuff. And Stranger Things kind of has a sci-fi / horror, kind of a feel to it. And it's kind of like It, when you look at the 90s movie It was actually a series that was on USA back in the 90s, a lot more tame with Tim Curry, but it was involving, teenagers battling a monster is essentially what it was about. And this kind of reminded me of that too. So I tuned into that first season of Stranger Things. And I watched it I just rewatched. I probably watched this season 1 a couple of different times, 2 or 3 different times, because I just thought, man, this was so good. It's got kind of that opening theme song that is just so classic. It kind of reminds me, I know I'm kind of stretching here, where you think about like the Star Wars theme music when it comes on and you know exactly what it is. And you've kind of got like the credits, kind of not the end credits, but like the beginning credits where it's telling the story of what's going to happen, like leading up to the movie or the episode or whatever. That Stranger Things theme song is iconic, I think. I just think it's classic. So watch this show, got into it, watched season 2, loved it. Season 3, also really solid. And I thought that, they're going to start tapering off. Like it's going to start getting bad. Like they're going to run out of ideas. It's the Duffer brothers that run it. Matt and Ross Duffer are twins, and they're the ones that started Stranger Things. And so after season 3, I was like, man, that was really good. They just finished strong. And then what happens? The pandemic happens and it delays everything. I mean, season 3 came out July 4th, 2019. So, they started on season 4. Delays. We're all stuck at home. They're not able to work. They couldn't film. And so July 4th, 2022, a full 3 years after season 3 was released, season 4 comes out and was absolutely unstoppable. It was unbelievable. It might be the best series yet in the way that they tied things together because, they have done a good job of introducing characters, introducing villains, and kind of how to stop it all that as they're kind of going through their bit. But a lot of unanswered questions heading into season 4, and man, they just hit it. They nailed it. They absolutely nailed season 4. I'm not going to say it was perfect. There's a couple of plot holes, things here, whatever. There's going to be people that attack it. Fine. That's with anything. But season 4 was really, really strong. The Duffer Brothers have done a great job of building complex characters. They've done good character building. They've got a lot of complex things going on. There's all these different relationships between the people, a lot of moving parts, many, many different directions, and they all have kind of unique capabilities. And it's great how they've set this thing up. I mean, it's really, really good. Season 5 will be the finale, and they have that set for 2024. And the billboard or the poster's already out. It just says 2024, and I think it says Hawkins will fall. So 2024, I have to assume, just based on the last 2 seasons, and maybe this is wrong, but the last 2 seasons have come out July 4th, 2019, 2022. So in about 2 years from now, we should see season 5, unless there's delays, which there very well could be because there's a lot of things they've got to wrap up. They've also kind of announced it's not going to be kind of a quick season. Like they're really going to take their time, going to explain more about the Upside Down and kind of that world and dive into a little bit more of that. They did say they're not going to introduce any new characters, but I will challenge that at the end of this video. I'll talk through a couple of things where I think that they can say that, but also introduce some things that weren't there before. So I didn't know there was Stranger Things cards until maybe about 3 months ago. It was a couple of weeks after the season 4 had been released, and it took me a little bit to get through it. I was watching it with my family as well. My wife is the only one. She's not into scary stuff, any of that. And season 4 was pretty heavy. It was definitely more scary than the first 3. So she was the only one that's not really into it, but the rest of the family was. So I had a little bit of a delay. It wasn't like it came out and we just like binged it and we saw everything. It took us a couple weeks to get through it, but I remember thinking like, man, this is awesome. Like the way that they're just building up. They got this Katie Bush song that's all of a sudden, after 30 years, it's #1 or whatever. It never happened, in the history of the world, to where a TV show just brought basically Katie Bush is not a one-hit wonder, but that song was popular in 1985, but the highest it ever got on the charts was like 27 or 28. And now it's like top 5, in the world or something. It's crazy. And it's just because of one show brought it in, threw it in a couple of scenes. It's insane. But that's kind of the cool piece of this. Another cool element of it. I didn't know there was cards until we were about halfway through season 4. I'm on eBay, kind of doing my thing. And I see a Probstein auctions that are running for Stranger Things cards. I'm like, there's Stranger Things cards? That's awesome. So I'm looking into it, and I did win one. I'm going to disclose kind of what I've got. This video is not going to show specific stuff. Actually, I've got one card that I'll show that's specific, but this video is not going to be that video. I'm going to break this up into a few different videos. We're going to walk through what's available, all the stuff. Just, hang with me. This is kind of more of an introductory, type video just to kind of get things started. So learning about, okay, there are Stranger Things cards. I did win one on auction. And so I was like, this is actually kind of cool. So I end up, what is this? So it comes out July 4th. We finish it up like mid-July, kind of end of July. I head to the National. The largest booth, most popular booth at the National is the Stranger Things booth. It's not even a sports card booth. It's Zerocool's got a massive tower that is, it's all around about Stranger Things. They've got promo packs that are in a cool vending machine. There's a line wrapped around where you can wait in line at a couple different times a day. The waits were wild. I didn't even bother with it because I was like, man, that looks really cool. And I took pictures and stuff to show my kids. But I'm like, I'm not waiting in line for these promo cards. I mean, it's a cool idea. But then I was also thinking too, like I remember Josh Luber, I'd seen a couple weeks before the National, he had mentioned in an interview that they had some sort of a deal with Stranger Things where they were going to do it. And look, with Zerocool, like they brought out the Gary V friend stuff, blah, 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 like not really interested in that stuff. They brought out the Jackass cards. Again, not really interested. I remember it. It's kind of a part of the culture thing. It's 90s stuff. Great, but not interested. They did also come out with Dune and Clerks, which I'm a big Dune fan. I like that new Dune remake that they made. I thought that was cool. Clerks, but these are very niche products. Stranger Things is massive. Stranger Things is not Clerks. I mean, this is a massive, massive deal. And so I'm at the National. I take pictures. I'm like, man, that is really, really sweet. But honestly, at the National, I was very focused on the sports cards that I was looking for. You know, I wanted that 86 Fleer sticker Jordan that I ended up getting, the Luka Silver 10. I got it. So my mindset was not there. I was like, this is really cool, but I'm really focused on what I'm doing here and just didn't mess with it. When I got back from the National, I was just thinking like, man, those promo cards, they started to pop up on eBay. So I'm like, well, what do they cost? You know, a lot of them were, $50, $100, some of them $200, which a lot of money for a promo card. But then a lot of people were talking about, there's 2 cards in a pack in the promo packs. One of the boxes got stolen or something. So we don't even know where those cards are. Anyway, the thought was they're limited. These are limited cards, these promo cards. So I was thinking like, you know what? I should kind of take a crack at this if it's the right price point. I got 311 cards. I actually, thanks to Neo, thank you, Rob, Neo Cards and Comics. I told him about this. And he's like, hey, check this out. So there's actually an SGC 9 of 11 that's online right now. And so I was like, oh, sweet. I'll go ahead and get that. It was actually Aaron from Slab Stocks was the seller of that card. So I was like, cool. Bought that one. I've actually got 3 copies. So I've got 2. I graded another copy. So I've got 2 9s and I've got a raw copy that will go into SGC for grading as well. I've got about a dozen of the promo cards, but later on in the video, I'll kind of go into all the stuff that I've got currently. And so I was looking at that. I'm like, man, these really seem limited. And I had won a Dustin Henderson auto before I went to the National. Like I had said, when I was watching it, there's a Probstein auction. I was like, you know what? It's a couple $100. It was PSA graded already. It's autoed. It's got a patch on it. Well, I look back now, I was like, that's actually a really rare card. And again, in future videos, we will talk more about that. But I was like, I'm really glad that I got that when I got it. And so it kind of took me down this path of like, and looking at my own collection of like, what is the type of stuff that I really, really love? And I was looking at this and it's like, this is like the perfect meld of my family is into this, it's cards. So we can kind of all get into this together. And I ended up getting a couple of just BGS authenticated Millie, Bobby Brown on-card autos for each of my daughters. I got one for each of them. And they were like, oh man, this is so cool. I got a Max Relic card for my youngest daughter, and they thought that it was so awesome. Like my oldest is like, I'm taking this to my dorm, taking this to my college dorm. This is so sweet. So this is also kind of like it was a family affair. Normally I'm doing my thing and everybody's like, that's cool, Dad, but we're not really into it. This was the thing where it was like, hey, we're all kind of in this together. And they actually, when I do get new stuff, they think that it's awesome. So that's a huge bonus. So my thought was, I am going to build a prolific Stranger Things collection. And as I dug in deeper, I realized that there's just not a lot of options for this. There's really not. So the first set from Topps goes back to 2018. That's season 1, series 1, if you will. 2018, and then season 2, 2019. 2019, they also came out with an upside down set to kind of go along with that. And then in 2020, they came out with just an online autograph set. They sold it online. Apparently it sold out really quickly. So those are just available on eBay or whatever. They're out there. You can see them. Some of them are numbered all the way down. Maybe, I don't know if there's 1 of 1s, but I've seen some numbered out of 5, numbered out of 10. So there's some scarcity there for sure. And that's it. And that's kind of like the season 3 is like that 2020 autograph set. So it's not great. I mean, but I guess the main point here is that there's just not many options. And the autographs are really kind of a big chase card. They're not easy to find at all, especially for key characters. And so I was looking at that, just the limited options of Stranger Things cards. And then of course, Zerocool's coming out with season 4 cards. And I just thought too, when I saw the promo card, it was like, if it was a cheesy looking promo card, it'd be one thing. But I just thought, man, these cards look awesome. Like they look really, really cool. So I'm very excited to see what these look like. I assume they're going to have some really nice auto stuff. They're going to have some memorabilia relic things, on set type stuff, relic stuff that I think is going to be really, really cool. And that is supposed to come out towards the end of this year or early next. I've heard Josh Luber talk about the possibility of Netflix selling this through Netflix. So I guess the big question mark will be is what's going to be the production run on these? And they should disclose, Zerocool discloses each of their releases. So the assumption is they'll do the same thing here. They will disclose how many were created. Netflix is going to sell some, they're going to sell some, or however they're going to do that. But that's a really big deal that Netflix is going to be selling that stuff directly, if that is true. So Zerocool is going to continue to kind of move this thing forward. Josh Luber said this is a long-term partnership for them. So it didn't strike me as like they're just going to do season 4 and then of course they'll do season 5 cards, which is kind of interesting too, because let's say season 5 comes out summer of 2024. It's not like Zerocool is going to have cards ready for that, for that release, because they're not going to know all the characters. They're not going to know all the stuff. I mean, they might be able to have some things in the works, maybe have some autos and stuff, like have them already sign certain things. But just like with season 4 in Vecna, there's going to be other stuff too in there that they might want to include for season 5 to where they might not have season 5 cards ready. Maybe they will. Maybe they will already have some of the stuff ready, but I don't know. And the point was though, is that I think there's going to be more stuff than just season 4, season 5. The Duffer Brothers have signed on with Netflix for multiple years, and they've also hinted at a spin-off project. And this is also the type of thing too, when I think about, is there an opportunity to bring this back down the road? Well, of course there is. I mean, look at like Stephen King's It, where, you have like the teenagers that are battling the monster, and then 24 years later, they have to come back and do it all again. Would it be a shock if in 20, 25 years, we have to come back to Hawkins and figure out some new threat? Would that be some sort of a shock? It wouldn't to me, because look, anytime you have a massive hit, Netflix has been a company for 20 years. Believe it or not, 20 years they have been in business, and Stranger Things is their biggest success as far as their original series go. And they've had a lot of good success stories, but this is the big one. I mean, this is the one where you can sell action figures to it. There's comic books, there's cards, there's collectibles attached to it. This is going to be Netflix's biggest success, at least in the near future, and it just continues on. Is there a possibility that there is kind of a Stranger Things universe that is born out of this project? Yeah, of course it's possible. Maybe it doesn't happen. But again, when you have wild success, you usually have it come back, and maybe they'll screw it up later down the road. But the main point is this relevant? When I look at different sports cards, whether it be athletes or whether I'm looking at all these other things, cultural relevance is important. Now, I think that on that note, though, there's a lot of optimism. I'm talking optimistically. I think we should also look, actually, let me first tell you what I already have, and then we will dive into why this is a stupid idea. All right, so what I've currently got, 12 total promo cards. I've got 3 11s, as I said. I've got 27 total auto cards, various characters, only 1 11 auto, unfortunately. I've got 5 relic cards. I've got 21 different parallels currently, and I've got 1 sealed box of season 2. Of the season 2 cards, have 0 want to open it. That's just something I think would be cool. I'd actually like to have a few of those, or season 1 if they're, affordable. If I can get one at a decent price, just to hold. Not interested at all in opening it. The box art on on the series 2, the season 2 is awesome. It's got kind of like the red cloud on the horizon, and like they're all looking up at it. It's awesome. Season 1 also has kind of a Star Wars feel to it, the way that box art is. I'd love to have a box of season 1 to hold on to. So I think that would be cool. I don't want to have like 50 of the boxes. I just want to have one of each. A couple of each would be great. All right. So why is this a terrible idea? Well, it's simple, really. I mean, culture cards, non-sports cards in pockets have some success, but they really haven't boomed. I mean, we can look at specific things like Marvel PMGs. There's certain Star Wars one-of-ones or whatever that maybe have gotten some hype around them. But as far as it being kind of a mainstream thing, Zerocool is really attempting to do this. It's an experiment. I feel more comfortable that Fanatics is backing this, to where, hey, there's huge money and huge influence behind Zerocool and Fanatics as we move forward. But the reality is that it's unproven. It's unproven that Zerocool is going to come out with cards that really have lasting staying power collectability. And, Stranger Things is a great show, but there's a lot of great shows. There's been a lot of great shows over the last 30 years that have been completely forgotten, that nobody cares about. Now, maybe you could argue, well, if they had cards, if they had autos, maybe 30 years, now they'd be like, if there was Seinfeld autos, if you had a Jerry Seinfeld on-card auto from 1995 when Seinfeld was red hot, maybe that would be an expensive card. Maybe, but we just don't know. We don't know because it's just unproven. Whereas with sports cards, you go back, you got vintage baseball, vintage basketball, vintage football. These are proven markets, so to speak. You have a track record. You can look back on it and say like, okay, this is stuff that has been worth money over time. It's collectible over time. Even if you're not somebody that, cares all about the money, a lot of it too is just like, I don't want to really lose a ton of money. So will this hold, will this tread water? Will I just maintain over time? Maybe small bumps over time. Can it maintain? We don't know that to be true yet with this stuff. What if the show becomes largely irrelevant? What if they completely screw up season 5? It's possible. A lot of people didn't really like the last season of Game of Thrones. I'm one of them. Not that it was absolutely terrible, but the point is that it can happen. It can happen to where it gets completely messed up. And so again, if you're trying to hold long term, you have to take that into account. I would like to hold a lot of this for the long haul because I think it would be cool to see what happens way down the road and be involved in it very early on. I think that would be really fun. I am trying to buy duplicates. I'm trying to buy as much as I can so that I do have options. I do that on the sports card side too. If I really believe in something and really like it, try to buy a few of them to where if something goes absolutely ballistic, then you're able to sell one or whatever and get your cost basis back. That sort of thing. Fine. But the idea of kind of really holding on to this stuff and just seeing what happens with it is exciting. But that's a big reason why I factored into getting into this in the first place. Is it just about kind of the latest card set, the latest show? Or does it have more to do with the family element? The fact that the rest of my family is actually into a card set or sets of cards or an IP that I'm also into, that is kind of a game changer, frankly, because that hasn't really been the case for a lot of the cards. They don't have the same sort of kind of emotional tie to it. They're not, we still watch the shows together now. We're still watching, the series over again, me and my kids. So, I think that that's kind of a big thing that I factored in too is, what's my downside as well? When I look at it, prices for a lot of the rare stuff has moved up. It certainly has. But, the question that you ask yourself is, does it have room to go higher? And for me, the answer is yes. That's part of the reason why I'm involved. If it was already sky high, if it was already $10,000 for a Hopper auto, for a Jim Hopper auto, then it probably wouldn't have gotten involved. But the reality is you go back to how many Jim Hopper autos are available, not just on the market, but that just exist. We're only talking about 2018, 2019, 2020. We're talking about literally the amount of sets you can count them on your hand, how many sets there are for Stranger Things cards. If you look at what are comparables? Marvel, Star Wars. Granted, massive IPs that are already proven. They have cards that go back to the 60s. Marvel has cards that go back to the 60s. They have Marvel Masterpieces every year. They got, the Impel, MU stuff. There's a lot of different options in that Marvel landscape. Now, the PMGs get all the love and kind of that's where all the attention is. But Marvel collectors really have a lot of different choices. Star Wars. I was actually kind of curious on this because there's kind of been this new, hype around Star Wars cards. And so I was thinking is it kind of like F1 where, there's only a couple of new sets, it's like, oh, new Topps Chrome, but there's only a couple years of it. So you just have a very limited supply. But no, if you go back, I actually looked up 2008 Topps Star Wars cards, and there's cards from 2008 Star Wars. So there are options on the Star Wars side too. It's not as if they just started making cards. Of course, you've got the 77 cards going back to the beginning of Star Wars, kind of the vintage Star Wars stuff, but even new stuff, there's a lot of modern options. It's not like there's a couple of sets. There's a lot. There's actually quite a few different options there. So, and I'm comparing these together because I want to make sure I'm not crazy when I'm looking at this and just thinking I'm just kind of like pie in the sky. I just happen to be really into something, but when I look at two of the cost of the rare autos that are one in zillion packs and it's less than the price of a hobby box, it kind of makes you think. And so I contemplated not making this video because I'm still buying these cards. And so doesn't really help me. I was going to say too, if you don't have any interest in Stranger Things cards, but you do see them, if you see autos out there, numbered autos especially, please let me know. I would very, very much appreciate it. All right, let's get into the big bad. Are you ready for this? This is some serious business. I haven't really seen a lot of talk online, about this, because I think the assumption is that Vecna is the big bad, that Vecna's been the bad guy all along, kind of pulling the strings. And yes, that is true to a certain extent, but I've got a theory. So I am not a Dungeons and Dragons player, but I researched a little bit about Dungeons and Dragons just to kind of see who are the most powerful people in that, in that world. And there's a couple of question marks that I have if we're just watching this show. The one is what is the being in the Upside Down that is providing the energy? When you see Vecna and he's got all the stuff, all the tentacles in him, and it's kind of like recharging the batteries. What is that? What is that? Because technically Vecna was a human or human thing, and then he was kind of pushed out into the Upside Down, and then he becomes Vecna. Okay, but that stuff was already there. The Mind Flayer was already there, and he kind of joined forces, kind of took over the Mind Flayer thing. Great. But he did not create the Upside Down. And so I looked this up, and so what I think it could be is this thing called the Mother Brain or the Elder Brain. And my thought behind this, and this might be kind of twisting a little bit of the D&D to kind of make the story work, but almost like that is like the lifeblood, the power source, the Mother Brain, which technically it's a vulnerable type creature in Dungeons and Dragons. At least that's what I believe it to be. I'm doing a little bit of research, but it's got all of its like minions and beings protecting it. It's kind of like the mother. It's like the queen. It's the queen. It's the Mother Brain, the Elder Brain that provides kind of the energy, the psychic abilities, it's the communication, the connector. And so that is one theory that I've got. I also just did a quick search. It's like, what are the most powerful things in this universe? And one of them that pops out is Boris, the Dragon of Tyre or Tur. And this was ranked number 1 on one of these websites. Vecna number 2, and Boris, this dragon, is number 1. And if we remember in season 4, Will is drawing a picture of a dragon, and they're all fighting this dragon. I think it might have had 3 heads. There's also a 3-headed dragon in Dungeons and Dragons lore that's named something else. So you get the feeling like there's going to be a dragon in season 5 of some kind. And so Boris the dragon, or this 3-headed dragon, might also be a formidable enemy or one of them. The other thing too that's pretty obvious here is Will. There's something up with Will. Something is up with Will. And I know there's so much attention that is put on Will's sexuality because there's all these kind of like hints at like that he is interested in Mike, but you hear him talking. I think they're going to do like a double meaning on this thing where you hear Will talking about, I'm different. I'm just, you know how you're just different from other people. I just feel different. And so I think part of that is his sexuality. I think the other part of that is that he's got some stuff going on. At the end of season 4, it closes with he's got a nosebleed. He's got a nosebleed the same way that 11 has a nosebleed when she just like wipes somebody out, does something crazy and, fights, whatever. Well, Will also had a nosebleed. They've kind of hinted at like Vecna, the Mind Flayer. Oh, and going back to Vecna, the Mind Flayer, Demogorgon, these are all D&D characters. And that's the reason why I'm pulling from the D&D lore to come up with this stuff, is because it's all related to D&D. In case you've kind of watched the show off and on, maybe you haven't paid much attention to it, it's related to Dungeons and Dragons. But it's pretty obvious that Will is going to have a big part, or something's going to happen with him. He's been kind of a shady character since season 1. If you really go back, he's been kind of a little bit off ever since his abduction leading up to that. And then I don't know if he's ever really been the same. So I think that there's going to be kind of a twist that happens with Will. So definitely watching that. Guys, one of my longer videos, but I wanted to share this. I'm excited about this kind of new element of my PC, Stranger Things cards. Let me know your thoughts on this. Do you think these are cool? Do you think that this is nuts? Do you think that this is a horrible idea? Let me know. And again, like I said, I will have more videos coming, more about just what encompasses Stranger Things cards. Like, what are the options out there? We're going to tackle pack odds. We're going to tackle a bunch of different stuff. More to come. So thank you very much for tuning in here, guys. Stay healthy, stay awesome, and I will talk to you again later.